Ya, vamos, en serio.
Downtown Tokyo, March 20th, 1995. Two men are driving to the subway station. Rush hour is about to start.
Is it good?
They make a pit
Says it's
stop
good.
at a convenience store. The driver buys 2 newspapers. The passenger, gloves, a knife, tape, and sandals. The passenger is dropped off in front of the station. His train is arriving shortly. He boards the front carriage, and after 3 stops, he takes a package out of his bag and drops it onto the floor. It's wrapped in newspapers from the convenience store. He takes the sharpened tip of his umbrella and drives it into the package. A few more holes for good measure. The driver is waiting for him outside. He makes sure that any liquid left by the package is gone. The liquid the man just released on the Tokyo subway is over 900 milliliters of sarin, one of the deadliest nerve agents on the planet.
What?
On March 20th, 1995, at the height of morning rush hour, Tokyo was attacked. Emergency services overwhelmed. Hundreds of calls flood in. People are dying in the Tokyo subway. The man Ikuo Hayashi was one of 5. 5 people who released almost 5 liters of liquid sarin in the cramped and poorly ventilated compartments of 3 subway lines. Chiyoda, Hibiya, and Marunouchi. 3 lines that converge at a single point, the heart of Tokyo's government. It was an attack ordered by a blind, paranoid man. But it was a man with $1 billion, an arsenal of deadly chemical weapons, and hundreds of loyal followers willing to use them. He brainwashed thousands with a perverse system of spiritual superiority, with a final goal to save the world by ending it. This is the story of the Tokyo subway gas attack. This
But
video
why?
was made possible by 80,000 Hours, and the research was done by Robert J. Lifton, Ian Reeder, Haruki Murakami, and countless others. Chitsuo Matsumoto was born to a family of tatami mat makers. He couldn't see through one eye, but had some vision left in the other. As a child, he was sent to a special school. There, he used the eye that he had left to control his fully blind classmates. He forced them to strike each other, helped some go into town on the condition of money and favors. Teachers said he was tender to some, brutal towards others. 20 years later, he graduated and became a masseur and acupuncturist. 3 years later, he met his wife. With the help of her parents, he opened up a store that sold Chinese herbal medicine. Discovering a talent for selling snake oil, he made hundreds of thousands off of fake drugs and potions. But Matsumoto was more talented at selling than hiding. He's caught and served a jail sentence. Going bankrupt and experiencing profound shame,
Well,
he
you're not
grew
allowed to sell
resentful
potions?
of the state that took from him. In his darkest hour, he meditated, practiced yoga, read Eastern philosophy, and studied. He embraced Buddhist concepts of karma, redemption, and rebirth, and built his own interpretation. With newfound confidence, he starts a new business, a yoga school and publishing company. Matsumoto becomes a guru. Determined to fix the mistakes he made earlier, he combines his skills for marketing with spirituality.
We didn't see this video, I didn't see it.
A photo of him levitating appears in a magazine. Photos of him getting endorsed by spiritual leaders. He does interviews and tells the world that he wandered the Japanese countryside when a deity appeared before him. It told him he was the god of light who will lead the armies of all the gods to usher in the holy kingdom of Shambhala through a final war that will end all darkness. TV appearances, radio shows, magazine interviews, deceptive photos and articles are paying off. He leaves behind his old self, no longer Chitsuo Matsumoto, a failed salesman, the boy raised by tatami mat makers. Now Shoko Asahara, a guru with a following. The name of his cult, Shinrikyo, Supreme Truth. But his cult is not like others. He's surrounded by brilliant scientists, chemists, physicists, Japanese from elite universities, and families. Asahara had a goal that needed talent that would help him build a new Japanese civilization after Armageddon, with him at its center. In his own mind and that of his followers, he was a god. The closer you were to him, the higher your rank. To move up, he created tests. He filtered members for their devotion and talent and began targeting the young and educated. Holding talks at top universities, Asahara crafted a message that blended spirituality with science.
Yeah, but why are universities letting him do that
research labs alongside enlightenment. He marketed himself to those who felt alienated from Japanese society. Sexual advertisements to target lonely young men, flirtatious women on the answering machine. Most ignored his advances, but some did attend his talks. These were Samana Minarai, one foot in Ohm, the other still in Japanese society, the lowest of his hierarchy. Once a novice, the next step was a loyal member, a Samana. Only a Samana could truly join the master. They could unlock supernatural abilities like Asahara, levitation, telepathy, and mind reading. But they had to cut off their lives. A Samana had to renounce their family, property, money, work, and even their names. They had to give it all to Om Shinrikyo. During their initiation, they participated in mass prayer ceremonies. They were given high doses of LSD and were locked in small rooms for...
Yeah, but Chad, if you say you're gonna reach levitation and you don't levitate, how like, I understand brainwashing, but you say you're flying and you're not flying. I mean, bro, I'm not flying, yo.
Weeks. Samanas were forced into celibacy. They were forbidden to love or to ejaculate.
Even with
For
drugs,
young
you're
men who
not
joined
flying.
a religious death cult, the former significantly easier than the latter. They endured exhausting breathing exercises, long hours of meditation, and were sometimes expected to rise and kneel 100,000 times in a row. On top of this schedule, each member was given heavy unpaid labor. It was normal for them to only get 3 hours of sleep a night. This was required for Asahara to cull his stock. The line between punishment and training was blurred by design. Long exposure to scalding hot and freezing cold water, hanging upside down for hours.
Wait, that's deadly.
Samanas were told this was training, the only way to rid themselves of bad karma.
Wait, that's deadly.
Karma is a core belief in Buddhist tradition. Good actions bring good results. Bad actions bring suffering. Traditionally weaponized by white girls with dreadlocks who call their exes narcissists, Asahara used it differently. According to him, it could be removed through physical means like asceticism and self-torture. If they worked hard enough, they could also remove it from others. By the late 80s, his operation had matured. His goals shifted from acquiring followers to using them. He tells them of his Shambhala plan. Their movement would spread and transform the world into a utopian paradise.
Right.
He launches a new headquarters near Mount Fuji. They start acquiring rural plots of land to build lotus villages. These were isolated communities of Om followers that were models for their new civilization. The beginning of his state within a state. He knew the power of vision well, so he hid his followers from the outside. It's September 1988. A Samana is hung upside down at the Mount Fuji Center. He had been showing signs of mental illness during the cult's rituals. They immersed him in ice-cold water to calm him down.
Oh, now he's ill.
He dies. That wasn't supposed to happen. Asahara and company are worried. This could ruin their entire operation. They tell no one, and they burn his body, and hide his ashes by dropping them in a lake. First crisis averted. But now they had a new problem. The men's friend Shuji Taguchi saw what happened and threatened to leave and snitch. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Well, then just gonna do it.
As Asahara's fear, isolation, and power grew, so did his interpretation of karma. Everyone outside of Om was infected with bad karma. If they died, they would suffer in the afterlife. His members, however, were spiritually superior, equipped with the ability to take on their karma. They had a duty to elevate people's souls. A spiritually superior person could cleanse them of their bad karma by killing them.
Oh.
On the orders of Asahara, they had to poa Shuji Taguchi. He was strangled by 5 members in a small tatami cell. Asahara's first real kill. His cult was no longer a small yoga studio. Asahara had given them a spiritual right to murder. If he organized them properly, he could do even more. But the larger it grew, the more attention it drew. People were starting to take notice of the strange cult with colorful robes. Tatsumi Sakamoto is an anti-cult
Hey,
lawyer.
Squid Games.
He knows Ohm seizes assets and holds members against their will. One day, he decides to do something about it. Months after Ohm's first POA, he records an interview. He tells the Tokyo Broadcasting System of the cult's predatory tactics. To not cause offense, the TBS shows senior figures in Ohm the interview out of fear, to make sure they wouldn't get sued. A few days later, a few men walk up to an apartment complex in the suburbs of Yokohama. At around 3 a.m., armed with hammers, hypodermic needles, and potassium chloride, the men enter the Sakamoto residence through an unlocked door. They find Sakamoto and his family sleeping. They hit Tsutsumi in the head with a hammer. He's injected with potassium chloride and strangled. At the same time, his wife is also injected, beaten, and strangled to death. The men proceed to murder their son. They remove all 3 bodies from the apartment. Just another compassionate act of salvation, Asahara explained. Asahara had killed twice without consequences. His vision expanded. He saw the absolute loyalty of his followers. There was no limit to what he could make them do.
I mean,
anyone opposing the group was labeled as evil and marked for elimination. Soon, that meant the entire world. Similar to the Nazis during World War II, Ohm viewed society outside as filled with inferior people who did not deserve to belong to the new world they were creating. Spiritual superiority replaced racial superiority. Ohm members became gatekeepers of life and death. With the ego that only a very serious meditator has, Asahara truly believed he was the second coming of Christ, Shiva, and other deities. But proving he was God brought problems. He made world-ending predictions. Tokyo and Japan would sink. A world war would erupt between the USA and Russia in 1999. Nuclear war in 2003. He needed these visions to seem larger than life, but they also had to come true. If they didn't, it could show his followers that their emperor wore no clothes.
yeah, he's a phony.
But Asahara specifically crafted his organization to make his visions real. Ohm was divided into ministries and agencies, each run by a high-ranking member chosen for their expertise and dedication. These were the upper ranks, his inner circle. Hisako Ishii built a war chest. An office worker in her former life, she showed exceptional administrative skill. She helped Ohm amass $1 billion in assets. Asahara's bathwater cost $1,000.
Not really impressive when you have
His
cold.
blood, $10,000. Nothing was off limits. When followers became samanas, their assets were seized, including valuables co-owned by family members. They took advantage of their followers' cheap labor to launch new businesses: fitness clubs, real estate dealings, restaurants, and even babysitting and dating services. They undercut the Japanese computer market by assembling and selling computers for cheap. Eventually, they went international. A tea plantation in Sri Lanka, a sheep farm in Australia. They used shell companies to purchase a variety of high-tech equipment, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals, eventually used in the manufacture of drugs and weapons. Under the leadership of Ishii, Ohm assembled the necessary capital. Now they needed to make sure they could keep the operation running smoothly, without problems.
That's pretty crazy. $1 billion bucks?
Ikuo Hayashi
Not
was a
really.
member of the Japanese super elite. He attended one of Tokyo's top private universities. He later became the head of a medical department at a hospital. With the help of 10 resident doctors, he set up the Astral Hospital Institute to keep the cult membership in check. Here they detained, tortured, blackmailed, and killed members and their families. Doctors conducted spy checks, injecting suspects with true serum drugs and interrogating them. Hayashi introduced new narco treatments, combining these drugs with electroshock therapy to try and erase members' memories.
Hey, what the fuck?
They removed fingerprints and changed facial features to disguise their crimes. Anything to protect Asahara's plans for Armageddon. Overseeing high-tech weapons was Hideo Murai. He graduated from Osaka University with a degree in physics. He studied the X-ray emissions of celestial bodies. Murai worked closely with Asahara, who ordered him to make devices that could prove he was enlightened. Nikola Tesla's earthquake machine, a plasma weapon that would vaporize only humans and leave infrastructure intact.
What?
So Ohm could inhabit the empty buildings after the world's end. These experiments led nowhere, but Asahara needed something. His fear of losing kept growing. He forced detention of members who tried to leave, kidnapped those who did. He played tapes to members where he showed wars all over the world, discussed weapons of mass destruction, and preached that they were under attack from the US, the CIA, the Japanese government, Freemasons, the Emperor, and the Crown Princess. He had to do whatever he could to maintain control.
Freemasons.
But his visions to prove he was a god weren't coming true. Until they did. In 1995, he assigned a member to predict natural disasters by making astrological calculations. On live radio, the man gave a semi-educated guess. An earthquake would happen around Kobe. 9 days later, over 5,000 people lost their lives in a devastating Kobe earthquake. For his followers, this was indisputable evidence that Asahara could see the future. Armageddon was coming. Members were afraid for their lives while he gained time. Time to get his followers to fight in his final war for Shambhala, to cleanse the world of its bad karma.
Wait, he was making a bunch of predictions
saving
though.
it by ending it. He turned away from fantasy weapons to proven ones. The Ministry of Health and Welfare was responsible for biological and chemical weapons. At Ohm's main laboratory, around 100 scientists work with equipment costing upwards of $30 million. Saichi Endo dropped out of his graduate program in virology at the Kyoto University Medical School to join Ohm.
Because he paid him a lot of money probably,
Masami
right?
Tsuchiya was a graduate student in organic physical chemistry at one of Japan's leading universities, a part-time prep school teacher before joining. They were handpicked by Asahara to find his weapons. Botulinum toxin is made by bacteria under low oxygen. It's among the deadliest known substances. Endo started by harvesting it from soil samples. Then he built large cubic fermenters to produce batches, approximately 50. They drove through central Tokyo and Narita Airport, the largest in Japan. Spraying devices were mounted inside. It would be a mass terror attempt that would topple the government. The van sprayed the toxin into the air. But nothing happened. The release was a failure. Spraying it was more difficult than manufacturing. But Endo was determined, so he tried again. This time, the imperial palace during a royal wedding of the crown prince. It would be a mass terror attempt that would topple the government. The van sprayed the toxin into the air. But nothing happened. Botulism botched again. The third time's the charm, Endo must have thought. Maybe. So one more attempt was made. 3 briefcases equipped with sprayers were placed near the ticket barriers. Wandering passengers, workers, Tokyo's government elites would be unknowing targets.
That's like incredibly vicious. What is all this guy?
And nothing happened.
I'm so dedicated to doing this shit.
But Endo didn't stop there. Anthrax is an infectious disease caused by bacteria that live in soil. Animals become infected while grazing. Humans can get infected by cuts in the skin, breathing it in, or eating contaminated meat. Inhalation is the most dangerous, the most relevant for weapons. Without treatment, it's fatal. Endo probably got a harmless strain from a friend still in school. Some believe he tried to create a lethal one by combining 2 harmless ones. He moved it to mass production. Ever cautious, they tested on the roof of their headquarters. And this time they succeeded. Sort of. They made the street smell bad and killed a few birds and pets. But something had worked. They turned the anthrax into powder and drove it through central Tokyo. It would be a mass terror attempt that would topple the government. The van sprayed the toxin into the air. But nothing happened. Ohm's biological weapon attempts were almost comical if they weren't so disturbing. Asahara even sent doctors to Central Africa to bring back Ebola. That failed.
Bro, why is he so dedicated to this dumb
also
shit?
Fell short. Despite this, Ohm had other weapons they could still use. Masami Tsuchiya led their chemical weapons program. They made tabun gas, mustard gas, soman, hydrogen cyanide, and phosgene. They killed 20 dissidents by squirting them with VX. They tried to kill a journalist, a friend of the lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto, with phosgene gas. She escaped injured.
Phosphine gas, right?
Multiple hydrogen cyanide attacks were attempted, but failed. Despite their investment, the chemical weapons were rarely used at scale. There was only one weapon they used that was different. A weapon that, in Asahara's mind, had no equals.
Phosgene, is that different?
Sarin is colorless and odorless. Exposure causes symptoms in seconds. Larger doses, death in minutes. Asahara was obsessed. He channeled all of Ohm's infrastructure into its production. They first used sarin on a small herd of sheep on their Australian ranch. And it was a success. They moved on to human trials. 2 Ohm members pull into a parking lot 37 meters away from a 3-story apartment. Inside are 3 lawyers. They were fighting Ohm in a real estate dispute and winning. The men switch on the machine, waiting for it to heat up and vaporize the 30 liters of liquid sarin. Tubing directs the gas to fans on its side. For 20 minutes, it flows into the air. But a slight breeze shifts it away from the lawyers and towards neighboring homes. Sarin enters through open windows and is pulled into apartments via AC. The next morning, 3 people are dead. 2 more die later in the hospital. Not one was one of the lawyers. Sarin had worked. Now it was time to scale it. Asahara ordered Tsuchiya to produce 70 tons of sarin. If everything went according to plan, they would release the gas over Tokyo. If everything went according to plan. There was a spill at their laboratory. This led to reports of a foul-smelling odor near their headquarters. Police gathered soil samples. They identified 2 compounds linked directly to the production of sarin. A newspaper reported it was suspiciously close to where Ohm Shinrikyo had a commune.
Dude, chat, I think they must have been on their trail for a while. Maybe they say in the book or not, or in the research. This doesn't seem like typical everyday police action. Like they must have been like on his ass about like some of this shit.
The higher ranks panicked. They ordered the destruction of their illegal chemicals, including all their sarin stores. Within a month, Ohm built a wall inside the building, hiding the lab equipment and decorating the room to look like a prayer hall. The police didn't make a move. Despite panic inside the organization, it still seemed like they could get away with anything. But then they made another mistake. Cult members abducted a man whose sister had fled the group. Ohm wanted her back because she was wealthy, but her brother would not reveal her location. Kept barely conscious, he was drugged and imprisoned. He died of an overdose. But his abduction was witnessed. A bystander reported the van's license plate, and the police traced it to a member.
Holy.
Combined with the sarin soil samples, this was the final straw. The police planned a raid on the Ohm headquarters. But Asahara knew. Police informants leaked him the information about the incoming raid, so he told Murai to divert it. He ordered an attack on the Tokyo subway in 2 days. Murai had little time and no sarin, so he enlisted the help of Hayashi, Endo, and Nakagawa.
Thank you.
In 36 hours, he managed to produce over 10 liters. A spraying device was too unpredictable. This time they keep it simple: plastic bags and sharpened umbrellas. The Tokyo subway is the busiest in the world. It moves almost half the world's population every year, 3.9 billion people. The metro spans 286 stations on 13 lines. Despite the city's sprawling layout, it's known for its efficient design. 22% of all of Tokyo's residents use it every day.
That is an impressive stat.
At 3 a.m. on the day of the attack, the team rehearsed with water.
There you go.
Hayashi then gave them all a hypodermic needle with atropine sulfate, a sarin antidote. Before rush hour, 5 cars set out to 5 different subway stations. Ikuo Hayashi boards the
Let me guess, it's
southwestbound
not an actual
Chiyoda line,
antidote.
departing from Sendagi subway station. He continues his journey for 3 stops, puncturing his bag of sarin just before reaching his last station. He exits the train, which continues to Kasumigasaki. None of the passengers notice a thing. 26-year-old Kiyoka Izumi takes a deep breath. As the air fills her lungs, it suddenly freezes in her chest. Pain spreads through her, and she doesn't know why. She feels like she's been shot. As the train approaches Kasumigasaki Station, she starts to violently cough. Everyone around her, too. Applied physicist Toru Toyoda boarded the first carriage of the northeastbound Hibiya line. He continued his journey for only 1 stop, puncturing his bag before leaving at Ibitsu Station. All 900 milliliters of sarin leaked out. The passengers evacuated the carriage 3 stops later. The train continued with an empty front carriage until Kasumigasaki Station, where it was taken out of service. Masato Yokoyama boarded the 5th carriage of the Marunouchi Line train to Ikebukuro. When it approached his last station, he poked his packets of sarin, but only one was punctured. He cleaned the umbrella in the bathroom and got into his driver's car. Since the package was mostly intact, sarin was released very slowly. It was only when it reached the end of the line and returned that the package was discovered. The car was quickly wiped down, but it continued and completed another full journey. It was finally taken out of service 1 hour and 40 minutes after Yokoyama had punctured his package. On the other end of the Hibiya line, Asuo Hayashi boarded the southwestbound train. To prove his devotion to Asahara, he had volunteered to take an extra package of sarin. The packages immediately began to smell, causing passengers to feel ill. As soon as they reached the following stop, a man kicked the package onto the platform at Kodamacho Station. The small area quickly filled with the gas. The train kept going with a puddle of sarin on the floor. An overwhelmed passenger pressed the emergency button, but the train was in a tunnel and had to continue until the next stop. It finally stopped at Tsujiki Station, where 5 passengers collapsed on the platform. Kenichi Hyosei boarded the westbound Marunouchi line at Ikebukuro Station. He punctured the packets of sarin and exited the train. All 900 milliliters of sarin were released. 2 passengers collapsed by the time the train reached Nakano Sakue Station. They were evacuated.
It seems
The
still pretty
station
ineffective,
attendant
no?
removed the package. The train continued until the end of the line. New passengers boarded the train at Ogikubo Station. At 8:38 a.m., it continued in the opposite direction. Until 2 stops later, it was taken out of service. Ohm's attack killed 13 people and injured more than 6,000. When it was determined that sarin was the cause, Ohm was connected within hours. On March 22nd, the police raided the Ohm headquarters and other Lotus villages. They discovered the infrastructure meant to produce chemical weapons. Hideo Murai, the mastermind behind the attack, was murdered by Yakuza in public. Asahara was arrested in late spring, hiding in a hidden room covered in his own piss. He and 12 other Ohm members were given the death penalty. They were executed in 2018.
So
While the
Yakuza
attack
delivers
was
like
terrible, it could have
like
been
street
even
justice?
worse. Tsuchiya produced sarin at over 70% purity for Matsumoto. That level was deadly enough to float into a neighboring house and still kill 3 people. Under the pressure of time, Endo had made a batch half as pure for the subway attack. Because of the accidental spill in the previous year, he didn't have access to all the chemicals needed for production. If he did, the result could have been far different. Ohm was given official religious status by the Japanese police. It got tax breaks, immunity from prosecution, and made it difficult, taboo, for police to investigate. Risk-avoidant police and a paranoid man who knew how to hide after his first business failed. It wasn't a coincidence that he moved members far away from civilization and described what they did with vague spiritual nonsense. A yoga studio that brought lonely people together, peer pressure and isolation manipulated what was acceptable. Then Asahara slowly kept turning up the temperature. He purposely hunted individuals good at solving problems, and he gave them problems to solve that were terrible. All around us are systems whose goals are not aligned with human well-being, albeit at different scales. YouTubers that engineer misleading, anger-inducing titles to maximize clicks. Factory farms, AI weapon systems that evolve daily. Many don't know that better options exist, to the detriment of us all. There are many ways to do good, and they're not downstream from a single man convinced of his own superiority. Someone close to me is quite talented with numbers. In another world, they could have helped a soulless corporation code some app, scouted from a top-level university, contributing their mathematical talent to help some annoying executive increase his margins.
Oh, that was actually ad. I thought it was like a self-reflection, which would have been pretty nice, but...
What if it didn't need to be this way? Protecting against chemical weapons, not building them. Guarding life, instead of ending it. My friend no longer programs a self-help app. They now spend their time working on AI safety. 80,000 hours helped them train...
I'll link the video. Interesting. Chat.
Transition into a job that was meaningful.
Let's be honest.
They were
for
given
a guy
advice,
who probably,
support, a network.
for a guy that was trying to do some supervillain shit and end the world, let's keep it a buck. I understand that 30 people died and that's terrible, but the guy is fucking dog shit. $1 billion, a bunch of like radicalized fanatics that will do anything for you. 15 kills totaled. Fucking bitch ass pussy.